Hello again, Jason Lenzi here for Tangents with Alex and Jason. Anyone who knows me or knows Alex over the years knows how important Flash Gordon, the movie from 1980, is for us. Easily Alex's favorite movie, one of mine. I spent a long time dreaming about Flash Gordon action figures and merchandise throughout my life and finally got to make them with Biff Bang Pow. We did it several times, and I'm very proud of that work. And Alex did a lot of the art direction on the first wave. So all of that stuff means a lot to us. And one of the characters in the film, Klytus, was played by a man called Peter Wingard, who had a very interesting career as a British actor and slightly tragic at certain points. But there's a fascinating offshoot that involves Marvel Comics and Peter Wingard and the Hellfire Club. And if you know Marvel Comics, you know it, but I thought it would be fun to have Alex tell us what the connection is. So here it is.
I thought of something the other day. Years ago, we were talking about Flash Gordon, one of the first of the 8,000 conversations we've had about the 1980 film Flash Gordon. And we always compare notes on what we love, what we, don't like, we love everything about it, but I have, little, things to pick on, like the football fight and things like that, even though I love it still. And one day, it's one of your favorite things in the movie. You love that scene of the football fight,
which ironically is from the comic strip. Weirdly enough, not the football part, but his first sort of testing of coming into Ming's world and being brought before Ming is to basically be thrust in a fight with what are effectively the red monkey men of Mongo. And so it's half human, half, humanized sort of what looks like slightly simian-looking red ape men. So that's why the design of the face on those football-looking outfits is kind of like an abstraction from the costume designers to match what was the red monkey men.
I never knew that. And did they play with his, because he was a polo star in the strip?
No, they didn't work in the sport thing of his choice in that case. But what's interesting too is when I describe that's context, it's not the first time it got adapted. That it happens exactly in the Buster Crab movie serial.
Oh, does it? I don't remember that.
Yeah, except it's a bunch of guys who are pretty much stripped down to loincloths who, again, there's no color, so you just know they're wearing some sort of body makeup, and I don't remember if there's much fur or makeup done on them, but they're supposed to be some sort of subhuman kind of thing. They are the Red Monkey Men of Mongo. I don't think they're named, but he has this struggle, which, in the original context of the comic strip and the movie serial, the clothes he was wearing, which was a long shirt and jodhpurs, that's what he's wearing in both editions, and they both get ripped up to the point, you'll love this history aspect. This is the tangent of all tangents. When you go look at the comic strip, it's exactly this way in the comic. This is like 1934, right? And then the Buster Crab serial copies it exactly. The shirt gets ripped up, but it's hanging off of him, right? He's got a reason to get a change of clothes to wear one of those Mongo outfits, which he'll wear a series of during the character's life. But the rips on the shirt, when you see the movie serial, go look it up on YouTube. You can notice, if you're an old fart like us, that's the clothing that James Bama would give his paperback interpretation of Doc Savage.
Oh, wow. Oh, shit. I was just
it's exactly the same rips. So it's like you've got one complete sleeve and one that's completely torn clear.
Yeah.
And when you see this, you go, oh, shit. Yeah, that's what he did. He just did that.
I'll go one better on. I'll see your tangent and raise you another tangent.
Aha.
If I'm not mistaken, I think I'm right about this. As you know, we know, or anybody that loves Flash Gordon or that mythos and the animated series, the Filmation series and the movie and so on and so forth, there was basically a pilot film, basically. The first 30 minutes of the Filmation series did not go into Saturday mornings, because that was shown on Saturday mornings in chapters, and that first half hour was only in the film version, which I think aired in Europe or got a theatrical release in Europe or something. I forget what the deal was with De Laurentiis and King Features and all that jazz, but it aired on NBC in 1982. Everybody's got burns of it now. It's up on YouTube. And at the beginning of that, where you've got the connection between Ming and Hitler talking to on the it takes place during World War II. He's wearing the shirt and tie and jacket and jodhpurs. And I think it gets ripped up because a lot of the before you get to the actual series where he's in the red top from the first episode, from the get-go, a lot of in the coloring books, and you actually sent me that paint by number set where he's got the torn shirt on the front, and in the cartoon when he's like riding a creature kind of thing. I don't think it makes it into the series, but it's in that pilot in that first 30 minutes.
I believe in the series itself there's this slight difference of the same moment of story kind of happens, and it gets reanimated for him to be in his traditional red shirt. And I think they did an interpretation of that moment, re-articulating the event into an episodic form, but without the entire context of coming from Earth as well.
Right. That sounds right.
I mean, I forget how much of it makes its way into it, but I believe all of that is in there in some respect, but none of the Hitler stuff, of course.
No, but but also, I mean, it's I don't think it gets talked about enough how faithful the Filmation series, certainly the first season, and the film are to the original art.
It's the weird thing of the whole thing of putting him in a gas chamber to give him capital punishment. That's from the comic strip.
Yeah.
I mean, they basically have, I think, built, not just because somehow De Laurentiis had like a big collection of the comic strips saved from where, hell, they would have been syndicated in his home country, not like he was buying American papers because he didn't live here. So think about it. He was in pre-war Italy, right?
Italy, yeah.
And that must have been syndicated at some point, and he was, I mean, who knows? Given what his age is, I mean, he would have been alive during the 30s and would have probably seen it as a kid. So maybe his connection could even come later in his life, post-war, potentially. I don't know what his overall mental connection is to that source, but then again, it could have been as simple as like, oh, I really love the movie serials. But either way, the adaptation that's done is built upon the source material, and my guess is it's from an early 1970s book release where the stuff was colorized and put into these hardcover volumes, which I've bought off of eBay, because they precede all the later stuff that was done in the 90s. And
is it Kitchen Sink that did the ones in the 90s? Is that who it was?
Kitchen Sink did the ones in the 90s, and in the last 20 years, there's been at least two companies, I think, that have done brand new hardcover collections. One of them's IDW, I think.
Okay.
And nice collection, scans of the original comic strips where they didn't change the colors. These versions I'm referring to that were from, it was either early 70s or late, I don't think it was late 60s, but whatever the case was, when you get these things, the way they broke them down, they broke up the way the layouts were from the original comic strips and fit the book shape more. But they colorized them in crazy ways. So the colors were much more abstract and vibrant and big and large, not what the Sunday strips originally looked like. But I believe this is what they probably got a hold of, unless there is European editions that could have been made in either France or Italy.
There's a couple of interviews that exist, especially in that making of, that 20-minute sort of making of behind the scenes of Flash Gordon that never got put on a DVD as an extra, but as a bootleg. De Laurentiis is in that, and he's talking about loving the strip as a kid and how much he loved it. I don't know how true that is, but it would make more sense that those editions would have been, well, certainly for the designers. I mean, De Laurentiis, I don't think was standing over everyone's shoulders saying, do the ship like this and make the.
Oh yeah. Well, there's also the issue of the screenwriter. So ultimately,
Lorenzo Semple
Yeah,
Jr. Yeah.
Lorenzo, my buddy, we're on the same commentary thing that they made for the official DVD release,
Yes,
right?
you are. Yes, you are.
He must have been given that stuff
Oh,
because
yeah.
I don't think he's ever stated what his attachment to the material. So he probably just did the research job of like, what was this thing? Let me pull some story elements that were from the original strip. And all you have to track is the first couple of years of stories, which is really what gets adapted into the original movie serial. It all leads to unifying all the tribes of Mongo. And then they blow it up large, but treating Mongo as, instead of a single planet, it's a series of planetoids, like asteroids that are somehow contained in a sphere of almost like oxygen-rich gas that is floating through the universe and then comes into near proximity of Earth, or however it's done. We're not sure when we leave Earth in the first movie, or the only movie, when we leave Earth to go to Mongo, how far are we traveling? We never get a full sense of that. We just, as soon as we're out in space, we're pretty much in Mongo territory, and then the skies turn yellow and red and whatever. And then you're wondering, like, where did we go? Did we go inside of a gas giant planet?
Well,
where
and
this
of course,
is what's inside there?
This is where we're going with this particular conversation, because this is where we get the brilliant In the Space Capsule track of the soundtrack, which, as everyone knows who knows anything about this stuff, was done by Queen, which was a British band that existed at one point. If anybody needs more information, we'll talk about it another time. But I was a Queen fan as a kid, so for me, the game, and then this thing, having Queen doing the music or hearing Freddie's voice when I saw the trailer in the theater, I mean, I was just like, what is going on? Because I love the cartoon. And I see this trailer, I'm like, but they're making a movie of the cartoon? Like, what's going on here? Like, it was all just, too good to be true. But of course, I had the album, which I put onto cassette and then listened to over and over and over again. And I'm sure you know it as well as I do, and how wonderful it is. But one of the conversations we had way back then was, I remember you saying, I remember this, seeing this as we talked about the football scene and the music, the soundtrack, and I thought to myself, why isn't there more of a rock soundtrack to fantasy and sci-fi and comic book sort of things? Why wouldn't you do this? And because I was saying, like, how strange it was at the time that it was happening. I mean, I think initially they had talked to Pink Floyd, or Pink Floyd was certainly played on set when Hodges was directing.
Pink Floyd has a connection to Flash Gordon. I thought they had a connection to Dune.
They did, but I think they played some Pink Floyd on the set of the movie.
Oh, that was it. They were playing Pink Floyd.
Yeah, to get a vibe or something. Yeah. But so Queen, there's a whole other story about how they get involved and how it happens. And Brian May kind of oversaw the bulk of that.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically Brian was the nerd in the band that went along and said, "Oh, I want to do this," and then he built whatever the pieces were that would be to fill in his bandmates. But for years I would always credit, and I'll still say, I freaking love Roger Taylor, but I think that when we think of these notable sort of drum beat pieces, even just the drum beat that builds the song Flash Gordon.
Oh, yeah.
Boom, boom. Okay, compare that to the drum beat that builds We Will Rock You. I think both those are composed by Brian first. Like, that's fundamental to the song before you even get to his guitar.
Right.
And I think I give the credit then to Roger when I think Roger performed it, but he didn't compose it, And so I think that the composition that we credit towards this film and the rock aspect of it is purely the astrophysicist in the band,
Right. Yeah. But the point you were making was, whereas I found it an anomaly, kind of like at the time, like, that I thought, to me, movies were, like a Bond film would have a Bond theme, a theme song at the beginning, and then it was all music and it was orchestral. And all the stuff that had been, surrounding Flash Gordon was orchestral, and then you get this soundtrack. But what is it about you said something once about it specifically, like the vibe of action adventure like that, or fantasy, should have
to be
more
in a moment of story and have rock not just be in your intro opening credits, or your outro, but to have it interspersed in the course of storytelling where it punctuates drama and events and piques your feelings as far as the energy of getting your heartbeat up, and where you're like, you're in it with the lead hero. You're in it with the characters to feel what they feel. Now, we see this in all kinds of movies, dramas and whatnot, but here, take it in this context of it's an action film, you're following the hero, they're currying your emotions in a particular way. They're carrying you through to a certain feeling. And to me, the football fight is the perfect example of that. That's the peak of it for me, because you've got them first. You've got the orchestral score. Remind me of the guy's name again who did that.
Oh, Howard. Oh God, Howard Shore, not Howard Shore. Howard somebody. I forget. I'm forgetting.
Okay.
I'm missing his name.
So I've got a CD of all that stuff too. So he's doing that part that first is showing how Flash gets beaten up by this gang of ruffian monkey men football players, right?
Yeah.
And which actually, given the fact of how much they look like football players, may have been an accidental design that the costume designers didn't actually intend, even though it looks like they've got football pads everywhere, because the story, the legend has it that everything about them suddenly turning into a football fight was Sam's idea.
That's right.
Sam on set says,
right.
well, these guys look like they're football players, and you got these eggs, and we want to use these eggs as a projectile thing that he uses in the fight. Why don't we just, it's like they didn't know, the legend has it that Mike Hodges didn't know how to block the action of the scene.
Right.
That they were just sort of winging it in there, and then Sam says, like, let's do it like it's a football game.
Right. That's right.
Somebody get Sam on the phone, and he can.
And then Klytus, I love the bit where Klytus says, "You fools! He's playing a game. He's playing a sport or something. Like get down like." And he shows him how to do the football move. That's
right.
where even as a kid,
which is serving what exactly? It's like in a fight where you're fighting a bunch of guys are against a single guy. What do? Approach them all at once. Never do the single one-by-one thing. That's how the Bruce Lee wins,
Right.
You've got to use your weight of numbers.
That was the moment, even as a kid, where I kind of went, "Oh, come on! Don't! This is really cool. Don't do the joke about are your men on the right pills." I love all that stuff now. Of course, are your men on the right pills? I mean, that's such a weird, druggy kind of line to put in there.
Right,
I love it now.
Exactly. It really puts you in. It lets you know you're not watching Star Wars.
That's right.
Sure.
That's right. There's a lot of S&M in that movie, and a lot of weird. She rivals your daughter. I mean, it's like that means you use the ring on your daughter. Like this is, it's. I love all that stuff now, but as a kid, it was kind of what. But why do you think that?
Okay, so let me describe it for you.
Yeah.
Just the bit about basically you've got. They beat him up, they kick him in the balls, which really hits us as 10-year-old seeing that thing of like, Jesus Christ, you've never seen that in an action movie. They kicked him in the balls. I don't think Bond ever got kicked in the balls.
No, he did not. He did not.
And you're like, it's almost over-sexualized in a way, like, that's your nards, that's your naked bits.
Oh,
they
yeah.
kicked them right in it, like, oh my God. So Sam seems completely thrown for a loop, and then they throw him the egg thing into his hands like to use as a weapon, and it lands his weapon, and then the drum beat kicks in.
Yeah.
You get that beat coming in, and suddenly my blood's picking up as a kid, like, he's going to kick their asses now. Okay, now he takes over, because he gets an idea in his head of like, oh, I know how to do this. Plus they added in the visual bit of his eyes are blurry, and my memory as a kid is completely wrong, but as a kid, it was that his eyes blur over, and the scene cuts to him thinking he's seen football players, because he's a football player.
Right.
That he's looking at a line advancing against him, and he goes, oh, this is my job. I know how to do this.
He goes into automatic, yeah.
And the thing is, none of that's what's written or what happened. I mean, I could pull out the screenplay and check, but I mean, Sam says he had this idea, and it was put into the movie.
That's what he says, yes.
Either way, the thing is that there is no visualization of them other than the formation they're kind of charging up as, where it looks like a football team. You don't cut away to a shot from inside of his POV.
Right.
But you read, as the audience, you get the idea of like, oh yeah, he knows what to do in this moment. And so when he's suddenly charging through as the quarterback, which of course now I understand how that works, that like, yeah, quarterbacks don't do that because, again, they'll get fucking taken down and broken apart by these linemen who are monsters that, you know, the key thing for a quarterback is do not get touched, you know, because the second the opposing team gets you, you're not going to release the ball, and they might hurt you, in which case your career might come to a sudden
But
stop.
it does kick up. I mean, as a kid, I was, you know, part of my thing was I'm used to my heroes, you know, punching people in the face, you know, from Rockford
Right.
to Kirk to, you know, Han Solo got a punch in, you know, in Empire, like that's, and, you know, to see a fight in like the football thing. I mean, I love it. I loved it then, but I just thought it was kind of goofy. But
Well,
the
the thing is,
notion,
that's the thing is loving it actually for being its goofiness and saying, you know what? The goofiness doesn't matter. The goofiness is working, and that's the magic of this damn movie.
yes,
Is
no,
that the goofiness is a plus. I don't need it to be Star Wars. I want it to be something else.
yeah, and as we've said many times, like there's, you know, whatever you think of the movie, there's nothing like it. There's nothing to compare it to because nothing looked like it prior, and nothing, you know, maybe bits of Barbarella, but that's a stretch. And
Well,
nothing,
what we get in contrast to this now is stuff like what you could point at two of the guys of our generation, exactly our age, who come from probably similar inspiration. You get James Gunn with what he was doing in Guardians, where he was using rock music to punctuate scenes.
well, now see,
And
that's right. Now but as an original thing, you had said that, you know, you were surprised that rock, you know, an original rock score, you know, wasn't used more. Like you
right,
said something to the effect of, you know, this was so perfect, like it made me go, why isn't this in every, you know, kind of, you know, heroic thing or sci-fi or superhero
right.
sort of thing. Now we've got it where we've got, you know, who did the Mark Mothersbaugh did the soundtrack, did the score for Ragnarok, Thor Ragnarok, and it's got that, you know, it's got sort of a very 80s kind of a synthy sort of vibe, and of course Daft Punk, and, you know, with Tron Legacy and things like that. But at the time, it really kind of stood out. And what is it
Well,
about
you're also forgetting too that, like, you know, they did a big buy for Led Zeppelin, whatever millions they paid to use the Immigrant
oh,
song to
yeah,
punctuate the climax of that movie in scene, so that the general level of your engagement is raised by hearing this electrifying song that we know from
allegedly
50 years.
allegedly it was the first conversation that Taika had before they even started anything, because it took they knew that it was going to go on for so long that the first
Right.
thing he went for was that song. But what is it about the rock, you know, the guitar kind of rock score that you think fits so well with, not I'm not talking about, you know, the James Gunn thing, dropping tracks into, you know, already existing tracks into a soundtrack, but what is it about that you think works so well with, you know, fantasy, and that it should be used more, or you're surprised that it wasn't, you know, done more? I mean, Queen did it again
It just seems like
with
it's an
Highlander.
alchemy that it makes perfect sense in the alchemy of connection for manipulating your audience's feelings and pushing them up in a degree that you really feel the emotion of the moment, and that you're perfectly orchestrating people as you're doing that, as you're using that music device. Now, can you do it with orchestral score? Yeah, of course. You know, we've got that in Bond films and many other things. It just seems like, well, rock music's a thing. Why aren't we seeing more of that?
Mm. I
Why
mean,
is it taken until you get these guys our age making movies that are actually putting in rock cues into these kind of movies? It doesn't make sense why it would take this long.
and it is, you know, when I think back to the opening credits of Flash Gordon, and the, you know, I mean, it's, you know, Flash, you know, savior of the universe. I mean, that's the song basically, and it's like, well, you know, again, back to Bond or different things I'd seen where there's an opening, you know, song in a movie or something. But it shouldn't have worked. In many ways, it should, and that was what was beautiful about Queen too, is they didn't care, like they didn't care what you thought. I mean, they tried everything. And some people might scoff at that and go, "Oh God, they're using the name and the title of the song and and it's just nothing." But it completely and utterly works to get. I mean, I still think those opening credits are fantastic. That they
Oh
used
yeah.
the original artwork and that middle section. I also remember it. You probably don't remember this, but when we just started to kind of push the boat out on doing the action figures together, you doing the art direction on the first set of action figures, you quoted the hero, which is the end credits song for the movie, which is one of my favorite Queen tracks of all time. And speaking of the orchestral thing, when it does that orchestral break and the strings,
Yeah.
da 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 da, all that happens. It's just like you want to be in a car driving as fast as you can wherever you're going.
Right.
But you quoted the lyric and said, the continuation is yours for the making. And you were like, I guess that's kind of what we're doing about the action figures. Like
Oh yeah.
you were like,
Yeah.
we didn't get these as a kid. We wanted them, and now it looks like it's going to happen. And you quoted the hero, which is a favorite memory of mine. But that is, if anybody doesn't know that song that's listening, stop what you're doing right now and play it, because
The hero. Yeah.
it's fantastic. It's just a perfect. That's one that when you talk about the blood pumping and like all of a sudden when those dung 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 du- 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 and the drums come in, and then that just and Freddie's scream, it's one of my favorite Queens. It might be my favorite Queen song of all time. I don't know if I should say that, but it's just it's everything that I love about them and Flash
And it
Gordon.
was also something that Freddie could kind of complain about at the time. Not that he didn't like what he was doing, but more say like, you keep coming up with these numbers. I think this is the quote where he was saying to Brian that you keep coming up with these numbers that just shred my voice.
Right, right.
It's like you're putting me through my paces, and but God love it, he really brings it. It takes his unique skill to do what I mean, a million other singing styles from hard rock, heavy metal, and none of them would have been the exact thing that he does in terms of his range, from the low range to the high range that he did, without it being just an affectation of like doing kind of a falsetto thing.
No, it's just it's an incredible vocal performance. The whole tune, it's like the energy of it. But and I think and they played it live too. I mean, I think it's in that live in Montreal, 82 concert. They did. I'm almost positive they played the hero. That's all they played off that album, off that soundtrack. Because the album, it did okay, and the single I think went top like 15 or top 20 in the UK. I think it actually did all right. It didn't do anything in the US, after all the success they had in the 70s. But it is just kind of synonymous with Flash Gordon for me. Like when I think of Queen, I think of Flash Gordon and vice versa, and it's a beautiful marriage. But I just remember you being very very adamant about that energy of a rock score and why it fits fantasy and sci-fi and heroic comic book sort of adventures, that it should be done more, and it is now being done more. I mean, in a way, don't you think? Besides the picking tracks out of a bag and putting them on a sound, I think there is more of a rock kind of energy to
Well, what you
scores.
don't really have as much of is engaging with a known quantity band and saying, "Hey, can we get you to score this movie with
Yes.
some, original concepts?" I mean, that happened a lot back then. I mean, one of the cases that's lost to history, unfortunately, from the way it didn't go down successfully, is like Cheap Trick creating songs for the Rock and Roll cartoon movie.
Oh, right. Yeah.
All original songs and great freaking songs. Now they've played some of those things in live performances, but they came up with some awesome stuff for a movie that just never got seen.
Right. Right.
Got cases like that. People tried to do more of the same as what Queen did, but it didn't land or wasn't supported as well as it ought to have been.
And God bless him, Dino De Laurentiis did it all over again 4 years later with Dune, and got Toto to do the score, and Brian Eno to do the Messiah theme, or whatever it's called. So he didn't give up on it, but I just remember that very vividly, that you were, you know, like, why wasn't this done more for the stuff that we grew up with, and it, knowing you better now, it all kind of makes sense.
Well, it's also the key thing of too, like, go to, you know, moments you have with Luke Skywalker. He has no great triumphant moments that happen in Empire Strikes Back. So in a way, the follow-up with a different blonde lead hero who's not getting his ass kicked permanently in his film from 1980 was a relief. But by the time you get Luke returning triumphant in 83, you still don't have, you're not going to suddenly have a rock song interspersed in a Star Wars thing.
Right.
And it would seem like, well, if you're going to really take this stuff seriously, you're not going to do that. So we'd almost need to kind of do the research of saying, like, okay, well, what things have taken it seriously and still used a rock theme song to punctuate the moment of story? And we named a couple, but
well, I think immediately
a really good one
of Daft Punk with Tron. I mean, that is Daft Punk through and through as a, you know.
I just don't think that that's the same thing.
No,
to
it's
me,
not.
That was more. That wasn't songs. That's not like you had the equivalent of the collaboration that they had with Niles Rodgers from around the same year. You know, it's not like that song appeared in the movie. If it had, that would almost feel like, oh, there you go.
Well,
There's
we had
over the top hit. You know,
we did have that cross pollination with the Magic, a kind of Magic album, and a Highlander, where they sort of did a give and take. And I think there was also a tune that was used in what's the fighter jet one? Not Top Gun, but
yes,
there was another one.
The One Vision song that was in.
What was that movie?
Oh gosh. Yeah, no, I forget now. I want to say it's got the late Louis Gossett Jr. is in that movie.
That's right. Iron Eagle.
There you go. See, we landed on it. You know, look
see?
at these formative memories that we can pull out of our ass.
Why would I know that? There's no reason to know the name of that movie. But
because that's the way your brain is formed.
Yes,
man.
it is. We're stuck with it.
That's your gift.
We're stuck with it. But, you know, God bless
your
him.
Gift
Queen,
for whatever good it is to do to you.
Queen didn't let whatever the reception of Flash Gordon, which, again, you know, people forget that movie did very well throughout the world. It just didn't do that great in America, and did really well in the UK, and became much more of a, you know, like a bank holiday weekend sort of thing that aired, or around Christmas time, it would air every year. And generations of people in the UK embraced that movie before everybody finally got to it in the US, you know, years later. But they didn't let that stop them, and they did it again with Highlander, and then you know, you get the one in Iron Eagle. So but yeah, but that, I thought that popped into my head the other day, and I thought that would be a nice little doorway into your mind, the canyons of your mind, and the things that you like. Mind. So so there you go. I'm sure this won't be the last time we talk about Flash Gordon or Queen in these adventures.
I'm sure there's loads of people dying for more conversation about Flash Gordon.
I can hear them right now as we're doing this. I can hear them in the streets yelling for more. So we'll get to more. That was great. All right. And there you go. So the next time you're having a drinking game and somebody says, what is it that connects Flash Gordon, the movie, to the Hellfire Club in Marvel Comics? You'll have an answer in 3 or 4 easy steps. Hope you've enjoyed that, and much more to come in these deep dives of sometimes useless information, but you never know. They might come in handy at a cocktail party. Hope you've enjoyed it. Speak soon.